Thank you for joining us. My name is Becky Peterson, and I'll be guiding you through today's demonstration of Title Guaranty's online processing system known as CAP. The screen that you all see on your computer is the login screen, and today we're going to be processing a commitment and a certificate in the CAP training region. So the first thing we'll do is log into the system. Once you are ready to proceed and decide that CAP is right for you in your office, you will be assigned your own unique login and password. When you first log into the CAP program, you will see our What's New screen. This is the screen that advises you of any changes that have been made to the program, and will also alert you if we'll be doing any system maintenance that might affect the system's availability. The CAP program is property-based. So the first step when you're ready to issue a new commitment is to search the database and see whether or not the property that you are looking for is already in the system. We're going to start with the commitment. Of course, a commitment is issued prior to closing, and it provides a lender and or a buyer with assurances that they will in fact receive a final title guarantee certificate after closing, as long as the requirements that we set out in the commitment are satisfied. So back to our property. We are going to be searching for a property located at 700 Maple Street in Des Moines. This system is like many other systems where the less information you put in as far as your search query is concerned, the more likely you are to actually get the result that you're looking for. So I always recommend just putting in the house number and the city where your property is located. Now, if the property already happens to be in the CAP system, it will show up at the bottom of the screen under the search results section, which in our case, we already have a property located at 700 Maple Street in the CAP system. So this is something we'll want to take advantage of. We'll want to check and make sure that this is in fact our property, and then we can build onto this property that's already in the system. Now, if you happen to enter a new property or one that Title Guarantee has never worked on before, the search results would return no properties found, and you would then have to select Add New Property up in the top left-hand corner. But again, since we were able to locate our property in the system, we're going to click on the link to that property. And here's where we're going to check and make sure that this is in fact the same property that we are going to be working on today. You always want to verify the legal description that's in the program. Make sure that it's free of any errors and that it accurately describes your property. In our case, it does. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Save Changes button, and we'll move on to the next step of adding a new commitment. As you can see down at the bottom of the screen, here are some applications that have already been processed under this particular property. If your office has issued previous commitments or certificates on the property that you're working on, you'll be able to see those here. In our case, we're going to add a new commitment since we're starting a new transaction for this particular property. The first screen prompts you to enter the name of the primary borrower or buyer. In our case, John D. Buyer is going to be the primary borrower on our transaction. And I'm going to go ahead and select Lender First coverage as well as Owner coverage. You can actually issue one commitment with coverages for both a lender junior, and an owner. Click the Save Changes button to prompt you onto the next screen. Now we've arrived at the Commitment Details screen, and here's where you're going to enter in a lot of the information about the transaction that you're working on. The system will basically prompt you to sort of fill in the blanks, and we'll move through this screen pretty rapidly. First, we're going to enter the abstract certification date. Now, where are you going to get this information from? Well, in many cases, this information is found in an attorney's preliminary title opinion, or in the case of a refinance, a Form 900. Commitments are always issued based on the preliminary title work. In the case of a refinance, the Form 900 is used, like I just mentioned. Otherwise, our abstracts are certified and brought up to date. Now, one of the advantages for attorneys who elect to use CAP and issue title guarantee commitments and certificates is the ability to eliminate title opinions. Once you get comfortable with the system and you are familiar with it and ready to go, you can actually replace your preliminary title opinions with a commitment, which is what we're working on now. And a final title opinion can be replaced with a final title guarantee certificate. For those of you that are abstractors or independent closers or escrow companies, you will be issuing the commitment based on the attorney's preliminary title opinion. So for purposes of our example here today, I'm going to use March 1st, 2011 as our abstract certification date and 5 p.m. as the time. You scroll down, you're prompted to select the particular abstract company that worked on the transaction. I'm going to go ahead and select American Abstract and Title Company. As you can see, the abstractors are narrowed down based on the county in which the property is located. Here the name John D. Buyer, which we entered on the previous screen, has pulled forward to this screen. And we also are asked to enter the names of any additional buyers or borrowers that might be involved in this transaction. You'll notice there are Save Changes buttons throughout the commitment details screen, and these are here just for your convenience. Feel free to click on those Save Changes buttons if you get interrupted, if you get a phone call, or if you need to work on something else. The system is a secure system, so it will time you out, so it's important to click the Save Changes button frequently. The next box prompts us to enter the name of the title holder. Now in our case, Joseph Seller and Susie Seller are the current title holders and the sellers, and we happen to know that they hold title as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship and not as tenants in common. So I went ahead and clicked the shortcut feature to enter in that language here next to their names. The next field prompts us to enter in some information about the loan. You're going to get this information from the lender who is ordering the title coverage from you. The loan number is an optional field and oftentimes not available at the commitment stage. File number is a number that can be used for your purposes. Many offices use this file number field to enter in their own individual file numbers that they use in their offices. I'm going to go ahead and enter in CAP 2011 as our file number here. You'll see in a minute that we'll be able to easily call up the commitment that we're working on now with that file number at a later time. Our coverage amount is going to be $100,000. And now we're asked to select the lender. I'm going to search for a Wells Fargo branch. In Des Moines. And I'm also going to select a closing protection letter, since the lender in our particular transaction has requested a closing protection letter. The system will prompt you to enter in the name of the lender to whom the CPL should be addressed, and also the lender's address. Next, we're going to select the endorsements that the lender has requested. Many folks ask, how do I know what endorsements to select? This is information that you will be getting from the lender. A couple of the most commonly requested endorsements happen to be the Comprehensive One and the Environmental Protection Lien. So I'm going to hold down my Control key and select both of those endorsements. This is a good time to select Save Changes. And after I click Save Changes, you can see that those two endorsements that I selected, the Comprehensive One and the Environmental Protection Lien, have popped up into the endorsement screen. The next section prompts us to enter in some information about the owner's certificate that we're going to be issuing. Here we have a coverage amount of $125,000. Coverage amount for an owner is usually going to be the purchase price or the fair market value on that particular property. Because Title Guarantee offers free owner's coverages for primary residence valued at under $500,000, I'm going to go ahead and select the free owner's coverage box, click Save Changes, and you'll note that the premium changed from $25 to $0. We're not going to be adding any endorsements for the owner. There are, however, endorsements available for owners just like there are lenders. They're just not as commonly requested as we see with lenders. Go ahead and select Save Changes, and we'll continue to scroll down through the details screen. I want to point out a couple of fields here. There is a Mail To section, which is not used by very many of our field issuers. If you choose to use these fields, you can enter in a contact name, and the system will generate a mailing sheet for you. There's also a Notes section down at the bottom, which the Notes section is used a lot, particularly when you're new to the CAP program. It's a good way for you to communicate with our training staff. If you have a question on a particular commitment that you're working on, you can type that in here and our staff will be able to read it. And we will also communicate with you as we're reviewing your work during your preliminary phase of using the CAP program. We might enter in a suggested change or ask you questions in this particular section. We scroll back up, we're going to open up our Schedule B. Schedule B of the commitment is where we identify those items that currently affect title, and also where we provide instructions on what needs to be taken care of in order for the closing to happen. For example, if we need mortgages released, if we need affidavits, all of those issues will be handled here on Schedule B. You'll notice that the Schedule B screen starts with number 8. Items 1 through 7 are pre-printed on the commitment jacket, and you'll see that once we get to the point where we're ready to actually issue our commitment. So we pick up with paragraph number 8, which is the tax paragraph. The system will assume that the current title holder is current with their taxes and has been paying them in September and March as they come due. This works most of the time, but you do have the option. If this language that pops in automatically is not applicable, you'll want to go ahead and change it. So for example, if the second installment of taxes had been paid, you would simply make that correction here. Paragraph number 9 is where we identify mortgages, restrictions, easements, and any other liens or encumbrances that affect title to our property. In our case, we have an existing mortgage to Bank Iowa. I'm going to go ahead and enter in the details about that mortgage here. So we continue to scroll down. You'll see we have some general exceptions for ordinance and regulations, also for plats. If you had a specific plat that affects title to this property, you can go ahead and modify the language that's pre-filled. Same thing goes for the declarations, covenants, restrictions. If you happen to have a utility easement, you simply add a new paragraph and enter in the appropriate details about that utility easement, such as the date, filing information, book and page, or document number. As we scroll down, we get to Section 2, which is where we identify anything that needs to be taken care of at closing in order for clear and marketable title to pass to our buyers. We need a warranty deed from Joseph Seller and Susie Seller. You'll recall we entered them as the sellers on the previous screen. And the system will remind you that the marital status of the sellers needs to be included on the deed. We also need a real estate mortgage from our buyers, John Buyer and spouse if any, and Sally Buyer and spouse if any. And we need to release and satisfy the mortgage that we listed above in paragraph 9A here. Now, if you happen to have more than one mortgage that needs to be released, you simply modify this paragraph appropriately. For example, like that. Once we're finished with our Schedule B, you scroll to the bottom and click Save and Close. And we'll return to the commitment details screen. Before you are ready to issue the commitment or send it off to Title Guarantee for review when you're new to the program, I always recommend that you select the Print Commitment option up in the top section of the details screen to get a look at how your commitment is going to look. This is also an excellent way to proofread your work before you send it off either to your customer or to us for review. And you can see here's our Schedule A that we worked on, our coverage amounts. You have the option of providing us as a field issuer with your signature, and you'll then be able to issue commitments and certificates electronically. As you can see, Jane Test, which is who I'm logged in today as, we have Jane's signature in here, and I can now email this commitment off to our client. No need to print off a hard copy or sign it manually. Here we get down to our Schedule B. And you can see items 1 through 7 that I mentioned when we were on the Schedule B details screen. Those are pre-populated here. We pick up with paragraph number 8, which is our tax paragraph. And all of those items that we entered on the details screen appear here. Once you are ready to issue your commitment or send it off to Title Guarantee for review, you change the application status from pending to ready, and you select Save Changes. Now the system is undergoing a series of edit checks, and we'll place the file into one of 4 statuses. As you can see, our commitment went right into issued status. This means that the commitment has passed the edit checks that are built into the system. We haven't missed anything, missed any fields that we needed to fill out. It also means that Jane Test, who is the logged in user, is out of what we call audit status. She's done enough Title Guarantee commitments that she's ready to go ahead and issue them on her own. Now there are some other options. Sometimes the file will go into underwriting status. If you, for example, are attempting to provide coverage for more than $500,000, or if you are issuing some endorsements that require special underwriting attention, the file will automatically kick into what we call underwriting status, and it will be reviewed by one of our staff underwriters. When you're new to the CAP system, when you place a commitment or a certificate into ready status, it will automatically go into what we call audit status, which you can see here. This means that your file has passed the edit checks, but it must be reviewed by a Title Guarantee staff person before it can be issued. So again, this is the field that will pop up when you are new to CAP and learning the system. Again, our commitment is in issued status, so we can go ahead and select Print Commitment once again, open it up. Here's that mailing sheet I mentioned. If we'd entered information into those fields, we'd have a mailing sheet here that we could use. Here's our invoice, $110 for the lender premium and $0 for the owner, since the owner will be entitled to receive a free owner certificate. Here's the jacket. Again, our Schedule A, Schedule B. And lastly, the closing protection letter that we selected. Whenever you ask the system to produce a closing protection letter, it will appear once the commitment is in issued status as the last few pages of the commitment. So you can go ahead and send this off to your lender as well. Now you can always go back in and add a closing protection letter even after you've issued a commitment. And you also have the option of updating a commitment or amending it, which you will have to do pretty frequently. You simply place the commitment back into pending status, select Save Changes, and make the appropriate changes, reissue, send back to your client. Okay, so that wraps up issuing a commitment. Now I'm going to show you quickly how you would convert this commitment into a final title guarantee certificate. So the transaction is closed. You have your final title work, whether that's a final title opinion, a post-closing search, a Form 901 if it's a refinance. So you log back into the system, and we're going to want to pull up that file that we worked on. I'm going to use the file number field to pull up that file, and as you may recall, I had entered in CAP 2011 as my file number. And here's the commitment that we just issued. So you select the property details link. That will take you back to the property details screen where you can scroll down, find the commitment that you just issued, and you will want to select the link feature so that you can link that commitment that we've already issued into a final title guarantee certificate. Now, unlike the commitment where you can provide more than one coverage type to various parties, every lender, every owner gets their own title guarantee certificate. So we're going to be working on these one at a time. We always start with the lender first mortgage. Here we come to the certificate details screen, which should look very familiar, much like the commitment details screen. And most of the information that we entered in the commitment details screen is going to flow through here. So we're basically just going to be going through and doing some edit checking. Confirm that our abstractor is still the same, that we got the borrower names right, make certain that John D. Buyer and Sally A. Buyer are in fact the borrowers listed on the mortgage. We do have to enter an "and" in between their names. And since we know that they took title, John and Sally took title as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship, not as tenants in common, we'll go ahead and pick that language as well. Confirm that your coverage amount hasn't changed, that your lender hasn't changed. And now we're being asked to enter our post-closing abstract certification date, which I will do. Along with the mortgage signing date and filing date. Enter that information, click the blue link that says click here for default text, and you'll see that your mortgage language will pre-populate for you. We have a mortgage in the amount of $100,000, dated and filed March 10th. The blank line is prompting us to enter in the booking page or the document number of the mortgage. Confirm the marital status of the borrowers. The system will assume that if there are two borrowers, that they are in fact husband and wife. If that's not accurate, you'll need to adjust that accordingly. Go ahead and select Save Changes. Then as we scroll down, we'll see the endorsements that we selected at commitment stage. Confirm that those are still in fact the endorsements that the lender has requested you to issue with the final title guarantee certificate. You can always remove or make changes or add new endorsements at this point if you need to. And then we're ready to work on our certificate, Schedule B. Again, the Schedule B details screen will pop up, and we'll begin with the taxes. You want to do an edit check and make sure the language that pre-populates is in fact accurate. I want to draw your attention to paragraph number 2. This is the mortgage that the sellers had on the property. This mortgage should have been paid off in connection with our closing. However, because we're going to be issuing a rapid certificate, the mortgage that was paid off at closing, the seller's mortgage, has not yet been released of record, even though we did pay it off. It's only been a week or two since the closing, and the lender hasn't gotten around to releasing that mortgage yet. So it's still going to show up in the course of our post-closing title work. So therefore, we're going to leave it on Schedule B since it does still affect title to our real estate. Now we're going to address this in just a moment with the endorsement against lost lien, which is the rapid certificate endorsement. The ordinances, the plat, our covenants, any easements that we entered, All of that information that we entered on the commitment details screen is going to stay here on the final certificate. Now we have Schedule B Part 1, which are items that are superior to our new mortgage. But we also have Schedule B Part 2, which is where we identify liens that are inferior to the guaranteed mortgage. So, for example, if you had a junior mortgage, you would enter that here. If a previous mortgage had been subordinated at closing, you would enter that previous mortgage along with the subordination agreement here in this section. Once you've completed your Schedule B, you simply click Save and Close. And again, we will return to the certificate details screen. Now, because we are issuing a rapid certificate, we need to issue an endorsement to the lender which provides coverage to the lender and the owner, potentially, against that mortgage that we are leaving on our Schedule B. Okay? That endorsement is called the endorsement against lost lien. So as you can see, I've selected the endorsement against lost lien, click Save Changes, and it's now popped into our endorsement list. If you open up that endorsement and take a look at it, you'll see that it essentially provides affirmative coverage to the lender for any loss or damage that they might incur as a result of that mortgage that is on Schedule B. And it's prompting us to specifically reference that mortgage on Schedule B via the paragraph number. So as you may recall, our mortgage was at paragraph number 2. So I'm going to enter a 2 in the variable field, click Save and Close. We're now ready to issue our final certificate. But before we do that, again, I would encourage you to select Print Certificate and do a quick preview of your certificate. Make sure that it looks correct. As you can see, here's our Schedule A, our Schedule B. Here are our endorsements. I specifically want to call your attention to that endorsement against lost lien. As you can see, this is the endorsement that will be issued, specifically referencing the paragraph number of that old mortgage that remains on Schedule B. Once you've previewed and you're ready to issue or submit to audit status, you change the status from pending to ready and click Save Changes. Now in our case, or in my case, I did not pass the edit checks, and so as you can see, we have a red error message up here at the top of the screen. It says you must check the Rapid Certificate checkbox in order to issue or to include the endorsement against lost liens endorsement. So I failed to check the box here that says Rapid Certificate. So I need to go ahead and make that correction, and then I can resubmit the file, and hopefully this time we'll pass the edit checks and go right into issued status. And finally, our certificate has gone into issued status, so we can go ahead and click Print Certificate, and you'll see the full jacket appears. You can send this off to your customer. In PDF form, you can save it to your own system, or of course you may print a hard copy as well. So that concludes the demonstration of the CAT program. This has been a very brief overview, but hopefully it gives you an idea of how the system works. If you're interested in learning more, or if you think this program might be something that would work in your office, please contact a member of Title Guarantee's training team. Thank you very much for listening.